Hey everyone, I hope you're having a good morning. This being a teacher thing without my kiddos is really strange and I don't enjoy it. So please know that I miss you all very much and I am looking forward to seeing you again very soon. Yesterday I read chapter 4 aloud to you, and it will be a long night. And we learned that the Rosens have gone somewhere, and that Ellen was going to be staying with the Johansons, which is Anne Marie's family, for a few days. And Anne Marie was quite confused by this, but they learned that the Jewish were going to be punished, so that they had tried to escape. And chapter 5 is called Who is the Dark Haired One? I asked you to make a prediction of who do you think they were talking about and who was saying it and why were they saying that. A lot of you told me that you thought they were talking about Ellen, because they did describe that Anne Marie had blonde hair which reached to her shoulders, and Ellen had dark hair that was in braids. But a lot of you did not tell me who did you think was saying that or why were they saying that. So if you did not jot that down in your prediction, please go ahead and do that for me, because it's going to be very important. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading. Remember, you can pause the video anytime you need to. And if you have any questions, as always, send me a dojo message, something on Google Classroom, any way you need to contact me. Alright, so we have, who is the dark-haired one? Do you really think anyone will come? Ellen asked nervously, turning to Anne Marie in the bedroom. Your father doesn't think so. Of course not. They're always threatening stuff. They just like to scare people. Anne Marie took her nightgown from a hook in the closet. Anyway, if they did, it would give me a chance to practice acting. I'd just pretend to be Lise. I wish I were taller, though. Ellen stood on tiptoe, trying to make herself tall. She laughed at herself, and her voice was more relaxed. You were great as the Dark Queen in the school play last year, Anne Marie told her. You should be an actress when you grow up. My father wants me to be a teacher. He wants everyone to be a teacher like him. But maybe I could convince him that I should go to acting school. Ellen stood on tiptoe again and made an imperious gesture with her arm. I am the Dark Queen, she intoned dramatically. I have come to command the night. You should try saying, I am Lise Johansen, Anne Marie said, grinning. If you told the Nazis that you were the Dark Queen, they'd haul you off to a mental institution. Ellen dropped her actress pose and sat down, with her legs curled under her on the bed. They won't really come here, do you think? She asked again. Anne Marie shook her head. Not in a million years. She picked up her hairbrush. The girls found themselves whispering as they got ready for bed. There was no need, really, to whisper. They were, after all, supposed to be normal sisters, and Papa had said they could giggle and talk. The bedroom door was closed. But the night did seem somehow different from a normal night, and so they whispered. How did your sister die, Anne Marie? Ellen asked suddenly. I remember when it happened, and I remember the funeral. It was the only time I've ever been in a Lutheran church, but I never knew just what happened. I don't know exactly, Anne Marie confessed. She and Peter were out somewhere together, and then there was a telephone call that there had been an accident. Mama and Papa rushed to the hospital. Remember? Your mother came and stayed with me and Kirsty. Kirsty was already asleep, and she slept right through everything. She was so little then. But I stayed up, and I was with your mother in the living room when my parents came home in the middle of the night, and they told me Lise had died. I remember it was raining, Ellen said sadly. It was still raining the next morning when Mama told me. Mama was crying, and the rain made it seem as if the whole world was crying. Anne Marie finished brushing her long hair and handed her hairbrush to her best friend. Ellen undid her braids, lifted her dark hair away from the thin gold chain she wore around her neck, the chain that held the Star of David, and began to brush her thick curls. I think it was partly because of the rain. They said she was hit by a car. I suppose the streets were slippery and it was getting dark, and maybe the driver just couldn't see, Anne Marie went on, remembering. Papa looked so angry. He made one hand into a fist and he kept pounding it into the other hand. I remember the noise of it. Slam, slam, slam. Together they got into the wide bed and pulled up the covers. Anne Marie blew out the candle and drew the dark curtains aside so that the open window near the bed let in some air. See that blue trunk in the corner? She said, pointing through the darkness. Lots of Lisa's things are in there, even her wedding dress. Mama and Papa have never looked at those things, not since the day they packed them away. Ellen sighed. She would have looked so beautiful in her wedding dress. She had such a pretty smile. I used to pretend that she was my sister, too. She would have liked that, Anne Marie told her. She loved you. That's the worst thing in the world, Ellen whispered. To be dead so young. I wouldn't want the Germans to take my family away, to make us live someplace else. But still, it wouldn't be as bad as being dead. Anne Marie leaned over and hugged her. They won't take you away, she said. Not your parents either. Papa promised that they were safe, and he always keeps his promises. And you are quite safe here with us. For a while they continued to murmur in the dark, but the murmurs were interrupted by yawns. Then Ellen's voice stopped. She turned over, and in a minute her breathing was quiet and slow. Anne Marie stared at the window where the sky was outlined, and a tree branch moved slightly in the breeze. Everything seemed familiar, very comforting. Dangers were no more than odd imaginings like ghost stories that children made up to frighten one another, things that couldn't possibly happen. Anne Marie felt completely safe here in her own home, with her parents in the next room, and her best friend asleep beside her. She yawned contentedly and closed her eyes. It was hours later, but still dark, when she was awakened abruptly by the pounding on the apartment door. So I want you to make a quick prediction. Well, who is pounding at the door? They know it's the middle of the night. Who is pounding on their door, and why are they pounding on their door? And go ahead and pause it as you need to. Take your time, and then press play when you're ready. Anne Marie eased the bedroom door open quietly, only a crack, and peeked out. Behind her, Ellen was sitting up, her eyes wide. She could see Mama and Papa in their night clothes moving about. Mama held a lighted candle, but as Anne Marie watched, she went to a lamp and switched it on. It was so long a time since they had dared to use the strictly rationed electricity after dark that the light in the room seemed startling to Anne Marie, watching through the slightly opened bedroom door. She saw her mother look automatically, to the blackout curtains, making certain that they were tightly drawn. Papa opened the front door to the soldiers. "This is the Johansen apartment?" A deep voice asked the question loudly in a terribly accented Danish. "Our name is on the door, and I see you have a flashlight," Papa answered. "What do you want? Is something wrong?" So I think Papa's kind of funny there. He's kind of a little feisty when he responds to them. They're asking if that's his apartment, and he said, "Well, my name's on the door, you have a flashlight, why are you asking me?" "I understand you are a friend of your neighbors, the Rosens, Mrs. Johansen," the soldier said angrily. "Sophie Rosen is my friend, that is true," Mama said quietly. "Please, could you speak more softly? My children are asleep." "Then you will be so kind as to tell me where the Rosens are." He made no effort to lower his voice. "I assume they are at home sleeping. It is 4 in the morning, after all," Mama said. Anne Marie heard the soldier stalk across the living room toward the kitchen. From her hiding place in the narrow sliver of open doorway, she could see the heavy uniformed man, a holstered pistol at his waist, in the entrance to the kitchen, peering in toward the sink. Another German's voice said, "The Rosens' apartment is empty. We are wondering if they might be visiting their good friends, the Johansens." "Well," said Papa, moving slightly so that he was standing in front of Anne Marie's bedroom door, and she could see nothing except the dark blur of his back. "As you see, you are mistaken. There was no one here but my family. You will not object if we look around?" The voice was harsh, and it was not a question. "Seems we have no choice," Papa replied. "Please don't wake my children," Mama requested again. "There is no need to frighten little ones." The heavy booted feet moved across the floor again and into the other bedroom. The closet door opened and closed with a bang. Anne Marie eased her bedroom door closed silently. She stumbled through the darkness to the bed. "Ellen," she whispered urgently, "take your necklace off." Ellen's hands flew to her neck. Desperately, she began trying to unhook the tiny clasp. Outside the bedroom door, the harsh voices and heavy footsteps continued. "I can't get it open," Ellen said frantically. "I never take it off. I can't even remember how to open it." Anne Marie heard a voice just outside the door. "What is here?" "Shh," her mother replied. "My daughter's bedroom. They are sound asleep." "Hold still," Anne Marie commanded. "This will hurt." She grabbed the little gold chain, yanked with all her strength and broke it. As the door opened and light flooded into the bedroom, she crumpled it into her hand and closed her fingers tightly. Terrified, both girls looked up at the three Nazi officers who entered the room. One of the men aimed a flashlight around the bedroom. He went to the closet and looked inside. Then, with a sweep of his gloved hand, he pushed to the floor several coats and a bathrobe that hung from the pegs on the wall. There was nothing else in the room except a chest of drawers, the blue decorated trunk in the corner, and a heap of Kirsty's dolls piled in a small rocking chair. The flashlight beam touched each thing in the room. Angrily, the officer turned toward the bed. "Get up," he ordered. "Come out here." Trembling, the two girls rose from the bed and followed him, brushing past the two remaining officers in the doorway to the living room. Aunt Maria looked around. These three uniformed men were different from the ones on the street corners. The street soldiers were often young, sometimes ill at ease, and Aunt Marie remembered how the giraffe had for a moment let his harsh pose slip and had smiled at Kirsty. But these men were older, and their faces were set with anger. Her parents were standing beside each other, their faces tense, but Kirsty was nowhere in sight. Thank goodness that Kirsty slept through almost everything. If they had wakened her, she would be wailing, or worse, she would be angry and her fist would fly. "Your names," the officer barked. "Anne Marie Johansson, and this is my sister." "Quiet. Let her speak for herself. Your name?" He was glaring at Ellen. Ellen swallowed. "Lise," she said, and cleared her throat. "Lise Johansson." The officer stared at them grimly. "Now," Mama said in a strong voice, "you have seen that we are not hiding anything. May my children go back to bed?" The officer ignored her. Suddenly he grabbed a handful of Ellen's hair. Ellen winced. He laughed scornfully. "You have a blonde child sleeping in the other room, and you have this blonde daughter." He gestured toward Anne Marie with his head. "Where'd you get the dark-haired one?" He twisted the lock of Ellen's hair. "From a different father? From the milkman?" Papa stepped forward. "Don't speak to my wife in such a way. Let go of my daughter, or I will report you for such treatment." "Or maybe you got her someplace else," the officer continued with a sneer. "From the Rosens?" For a moment no one spoke. Then Anne Marie, watching in a panic, saw her father move swiftly to the small bookcase and take out a book. She saw that he was holding the family photograph album. Very quickly he searched through its pages, found what he was looking for, and tore out 3 pictures from 3 separate pages. He handed them to the German officer who released Ellen's hair. "You will see each of my daughters, each with her name written on the photograph," Papa said. Anne Marie knew instantly which photographs he had chosen. The album had many snapshots, all the poorly focused pictures of school events and birthday parties, but it also contained a portrait taken by a photographer of each girl as a tiny infant. Mama had written, in her delicate handwriting, the name of each baby daughter across the bottom of those photographs. She realized, too, with an icy feeling, why Papa had torn them from the book. At the bottom of each page, below the photograph itself, was written the date, and the real Lise Johansson had been born 21 years earlier. "Kirsten Elizabeth," the officer read, looking at Kirsty's baby picture. He let the photograph fall to the floor. "Anne Marie," he read next, glanced at her, and dropped the second photograph. "Lise Margaret," he read finally, and stared at Ellen for a long time, long, unwavering moment. In her mind, Anne Marie pictured the photograph that he held, the baby, wide-eyed, propped against a pillow, her tiny hand holding a silver teething ring, her bare feet visible below the hem of an embroidered dress, the wispy curls, dark. The officer tore the photograph in half and dropped the pieces on the floor. Then he turned, the heels of his shiny boots grinding into the pictures, and left the apartment. Without a word, the other 2 officers followed. Papa stepped forward and closed the door behind him. Anne Marie relaxed the clenched fingers of her right hand, which still clutched Ellen's necklace. She looked down and saw that she had imprinted the Star of David into her palm. So there's a few things that I want you to reflect on. First of all, how do you think the family feels after they just ripped those pictures up and left them lying on the floor, and they just bombarded their house at 4 a.m.? How do you think they're feeling, or how would you feel if that was happening to you? Also, I want you to think about the Star of David that they keep talking about. It's what Ellen was wearing, and they kept saying, "You got to get it off before these soldiers come in. If you look at, I think the cover of your book also has it, but this is what the Star of David looks like. It has 6 points instead of 5, like the stars that we typically draw or see. So this is the Star of David. And I want you to think about, why are they so worried about getting that off of Ellen? Why did she hold it so tightly, or why did Anne Marie, hold it so tightly in her hand? What is the significance of that, or why is it so important? So our next chapter is the weather good for fishing? And this title kind of is very random compared to the other ones that we've had. So I want you to think about, what do you think is going on? They're asking, is the weather good for fishing? Who's fishing? Why are they even worried about fishing when they've got the Nazi occupation and invasion in their country? So several things I want you to think about. I will post the next video Monday morning for you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Get some rest, relax, get outside if you can. Know that I love you and miss you very much, and I hope to see you soon. See you later.